Hello, my name's Tim. Welcome to Tim Burbage Reads, and today I'm going to be talking to you about The Star Rover by Jack London. So, Jack London is one of my favourite authors, and I've been going through his entire back catalogue of novels. I've only got a few left, and this is The Star Rover, also known as The Jacket in the UK. And on this channel, I was kind of going to stop doing book reviews because they do so poorly, but I just have to talk about this book because for me, it's a 5-star read, but I also know it's not perfect, but I don't care that it's not perfect. So what's it about? This follows, it kind of has two strands of the story, really. The first is following someone called Daryl Standing. He is currently writing out his story, and he is on murderer's row. He's about to be hanged the next morning for a crime. And he has spent a lot of time in prison. And he talks about his experience in prison, how he was very kind of belligerent and stubborn and didn't really like being told what to do, especially when he viewed the people above him as incorrect and stupid. So that gave him a reputation. And so there was an attempted mass escape, and someone kind of said that he did it, and so everyone just took it as face value that he was involved. Well, he wasn't. He had nothing. And someone made an accusation on him that he had stored dynamite somewhere in the prison to blow up a wall to try and escape. And he never had. But no one believed him because he was so incorrigible. And what happens is they put him into solitary confinement to try and get this truth out of him of where's the dynamite. And he's like, I don't know. There is no dynamite. And eventually they lead him that he ends up being tortured by something called the jacket, which is like a complete full body straitjacket, which is incredibly restrictive and really damages your organs, and is very, very bad. And he's in the jacket for hours at a time, and eventually he feels like he's going to die. And then one of his people in solitary confinement with him, in separate cells. The point of solitary is that you're by yourself. Communicates with him in a way and tells him to try and lift your consciousness, try and separate your mind from your body so you can kind of ignore the body whilst you're being tortured for a long amount of time. And what Daryl then discovers is the ability to transcend to past lives. And that's something that he was always able to do. When he was younger, he had a priest come and stay with him, and he went, oh, look at this picture here, and he showed him a picture of, Jerusalem and Bethlehem, and there were things that him as a boy had never seen these places, but he was like, oh, well, there's a hill there, and there were trees there, I remember, from a past life, and his parents didn't really understand him, but he's always been able to see these past lives. So the story then kind of splits into two parts. First part is the life of Daryl Standing. How he's in prison, what happens to him in prison, the torture, how he copes with it, all the way through to the end of his days. And then the second other part of the story is his past lives. And this is where Jack London hasn't written a ton of novels. He wrote about 20 odd. But he wrote hundreds of short stories, and he was very famous as a short story writer. And this is a book that's kind of like a group of short stories, but also a novel, which means the pacing is really off at times, because you go into one chapter is very short and the next chapter is really long, because it's just a whole short story all by itself. So I didn't care about the pacing because I thought the short stories were really good. The past lives were very interesting, and we go to different times. One of them is that time in kind of, 30 AD, though they didn't call it that at the time, in Jerusalem. One of them is a sailor who shipwrecks, and he ends up living on an island for a number of years before he is rescued. And one thing is that the sailor writes his story on his oar. All he has left is his oar, and he writes his story on his oar. And Daryl Standing, the prisoner, contacts the museum wondering, hey, have you got this ore? And they went, yeah, we do have it. It's been in the loft for 50 years. You know, how do you know about this? Like, so it's kind of proven as true. It's not just hallucinations. One of them is like, a few of them are kind of Stone Age times before culture. Really, really interesting, really enjoyable stories to read. And then connected by this kind of Daryl Standing narration. And one thing that really elevated for this for me was the prose. So Jack London has a style of writing that I've always enjoyed reading. It's quite blunt and direct. It's not too flowery, but this, because you're dealing, and he kind of gets flowerier throughout his career, and he's talking more about internal threats than external threats here. But it's told, with a very strong character narration. It's told in first person. And I just want to lead you with the closing paragraph because it really kind of hit something for me, which is, here I close. I can only repeat myself. There is no death. Life is spirit, and spirits cannot die. Only the flesh dies and passes, ever a crawl with the chemic ferment that informs it, ever plastic, ever crystallizing, only to melt into the flux and to crystallize into fresh and diverse forms that are ephemeral and that melt back into the flux. Spirit alone endures and continues to build upon itself through successive and endless incarnations as it works upwards towards the light. What shall I be when I live again? I wonder, I wonder. Absolutely brilliant. 5 stars. Really, really recommend. Please give this video a like. Please subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you in the next one. Now, get out of my house!